Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. So excited for you to be here on this Monday or whatever day you're listening to this podcast. Another week before the season starts. We are now less than a month away before actual season starting. But of course, I got to introduce Valair, Shabilla, and Clay Trainum. Clay, how was the weekend? How's the life? How are the things? And how's stuff?
Okay, things are going all right. Just it was a pretty decent weekend. Obviously, the mighty Everton Football Club won again, back-to-back wins for the first time this year off the tops. And then Sunday, I played a bunch of board games with one Valer Shabella. We
Valair played board games?
Yeah.
Valer played board games and cussed out multiple times during a game called 13 Beavers.
Yeah, annoying little game, but fun nonetheless.
Yes, everyone else was very successful at the game. Valair never left the starting spot.
Yeah, it was not great. So I'll transition into this. I did hang out with Clay this weekend, and also got to watch some football and got really angry on a Saturday morning about refereeing decisions with the Arsenal game. So just a regular, just a regular weekend. Yeah, and then watched NFL later with some friends and participated in some fun activities all around.
I gotta say, for that call in the Arsenal game, that might be one of the, and this is saying a lot, that might be one of the most unexplainable
It's
red cards I've ever seen in my life.
You know,
Uh,
you know when I realized that when Wolves, the team playing against Arsenal, their fans were saying that's not a red card during the game. So like before even seeing replays or anything. So I'm like, you know what? I feel seen now. Now I was very angry at the time, but Arsenal thankfully got a win. So
well,
it was
like normally there's like a way of like seeing how they came to the decision, like even if
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like harsh. And I was just like, huh? I'm very confused by it. But then again, it was a weekend of weird ones because uh Iliman Jai for Everton got a yellow card for imitating a seagull after he
Yes,
scored a
I saw
goal.
that.
And in the City game, was it the City game where the guy like fake shot guns and it's like
Yeah,
so
yeah,
fake shooting guns,
yeah.
no yellow card, imitating a seagull.
Well,
Like
Phil
yell.
Foden can do a little finger guns, no problem. Anyway, I guess we're not here to talk about the Premier League. Steven, do you want to talk about the Premier League? I feel like you don't.
Now,
I
what
just feel like
my team can't even beat City. So like champion side City, we can't beat. So like, that's it's fine. It is what it is. I did have a good weekend though. So I'm very excited. Sunday, this Sunday coming up, I'm going to see Hans Zimmer at Bridgestone. So I'm very excited for that.
nice.
So I have been watching yes, I'll be in town this weekend, y'all. I'm excited for that.
Is
Um,
Hans Zimmer going to do the MLS theme?
that so
He
that was
sure
going to
does.
be that was literally going to be the question that I ask you guys, and that is going to be my prediction. Do you think Hans Zimmer performs the MLS theme live? Yes or no?
I can only hope and dream of hearing that anthem live because it's so hype. You can ask anybody in that press box that when that music starts, how hype I get. I mean, I'm like, it's so good. It's such a good musical theme. Sorry, yes, he's gonna play it. I get really hype on that. It's such good. It's a banger, dude.
Do you know what I'm?
It's so good that it sounds out of place.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. That I think that's the thing is that it does sound so out of place in comparison. Do you know what? Do you know what I'm hyped for, Valair?
What are you hype for, Steven?
We're back. The 0-0 draw is back. Nashville SC is back to where it needs to be, not scoring 3 goals in preseason anymore. We're scoring nil goals in preseason and just nil goals. It's very nice to see. What I'm talking about is Nashville did have another preseason match against Charlotte, of course, behind closed doors. So all we did see was what we saw on the Twitters and social media. 0-0 draw against Charlotte FC. Um, I don't know if there was necessarily anything interesting that was from the lineups perspective or anything unique. Like Wilfred Zaha starting, I thought was very unique from the Charlotte side. I know we were joking about that, but I had no idea that he was actually going to start. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up from that, Valer?
Yeah, the big thing here, I think, from what we've seen so far, obviously we didn't see the game, but we got the opportunity to talk to BJ Callahan after the game, this time around, rather than last time we didn't have that opportunity with the U20s. So it was cool to kind of talk to him and have him describe to us what happened because we didn't see it. So Ben asked him a question, Ben Wright asked him a question about the sort of shape or the formation they were using. And I found it interesting because he kind of talked about this. He didn't describe it as this, but to make it easier, it's essentially a 4-2-2-2. And for those unfamiliar, essentially you have two center mids that are kind of on the deeper line, and then two in front of them. They are kind of wider, but they're still more in the middle. And then you have your two forwards or strikers. And we saw Hani Mukhtar and Jacob Schaffelberg start up top in that first lineup that they came up with Eddie Taxeth. By the way, he goes by Eddie. That's how he introduced himself to me today. So we're just gonna call him Eddie from now on. Eddie Taxeth and Corcoran. Sorry, with Taxeth and Yazbek kind of right behind the strikers, and then two midfielders behind them, and then the four at the back. So really interesting setup. We didn't see a lot of that going on last year. Interesting setup. Today we were at training, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but that seems to be the setup BJ wants to employ for most of it. The interesting thing is that this leaves there are really no wingers in this sort of setup. So somebody like Jacob Schaffelberg is having to adapt to a newer situation, whether it's up top or maybe drifting. You can still go to the wing, but you're not a winger per se. So just an interesting thing to note from from a game that we saw nothing about. But at least BJ Callahan was nice enough to explain that to us afterwards with the media.
And Clay, a little bit more of a philosophical question with that. Do you think it's more of a BJ kind of adapting specifically to the players that he has? Or do you think it's something where that's, specifically what he sees, going forward with his plan the way it is?
I mean, I think that especially the first part of preseason, you're just throwing people out to see how they do in certain spots. And I think that it's been hinted at that he's going to like some versatility among some of his players, ability to play maybe not necessarily multiple positions, but multiple roles within certain positions. If that makes sense, I don't know if that makes sense, but and so I think in preseason you're going to see a lot of that. What do you do when you're put up in this role? And I think you've seen that in some of the lineups because some of the lineups we've seen, like confirmed lineups, we've seen how people have been playing is putting players that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate playing in an MLS like meaningful game alongside each other, but you're also trying to see how they adapt in different circumstances. And that goes back to philosophy and sort of bringing people up through a system. Like obviously there's an emphasis on youth. One of the things about youth is that you may have a 17-year-old train with your seniors or play in a closed door friendly with your senior level players, but they're not actually going to play with the senior level team for 2 or 3 years. It's putting them in a situation to adapt to that. And so I think especially early on in preseason when you're still learning about a club, you're going to be trying to like establish an ethos on the way you play, but you're also going to be trying to establish a way of playing and putting people in uncomfortable positions or positions to see how they cope with different parts around them.
And one thing I do want to make sure that I mention is that BJ himself doesn't subscribe to the whole idea of shape necessarily or formation. For him, he's been very clear multiple times to us on the media and I guess to his players as well that the most important thing is the principle of plays, but principle of play for them. That is something that they work on literally every day in training. The principle of play is that each player has a role within that team, kind of like Clay was saying. They have to be flexible and they have to be able to deploy that one role they have within the larger sort of principle of play, which in this case is a lot of pressing, a lot of counter pressing, and a lot of making the midfield as crowded as possible, especially with this formation that we're talking about. This is at one point in the second lineup, they had four center mids all starting. When you have that sort of congestion in midfield, it makes it really hard for the opponent to start something out from the back and kind of build up. So I do want to make sure that I say that he's not married to one formation. He's not married to one shape. It's more so here's the way we play as Nashville SC, and we make that happen through different sort of shapes and formation throughout the season and based on the opponents, of course.
How different is it? Again, there's no hate. I think any of us on this podcast love Gary Smith like nobody's business. But the difference, the dichotomy between, like, I feel like we get so much information from BJ Callahan than we ever did Gary Smith when it just comes like to the way the structuring of the team is going to be and the way that they want to play. It's very interesting to me to see this just even in this preseason.
I think that BJ is better about communicating that into what's going on. I do think that the idea of like working within a system, even if the positions like on paper don't line up, is actually something Gary did a lot. I mean, how many times did we see, well, it's like a back four when they're on the attack, but it's a back five when they're coming. Like we saw lots of
Yeah.
those different wrinkles and not being married to a particular formation, but Gary wouldn't necessarily sit down and spell out this is what we're doing. I think BJ is certainly a lot more um informative on like essentially describing what he's trying to do, even if it's still using kind of the same coaching platitudes and stuff that you get used to over time.
Yeah, and then Steven, you're spot on there. I think him as a person, he's a lot more open with the media and with the fans, and honestly, anybody who would ask him. Even in terms of what we have seen in terms of training so far with Nashville SC, obviously a new boss comes in, things are different. They handle their work differently. So I don't want to make this like a BJ versus Gary type of thing. But in terms of BJ, he is very open in that part, and we have noticed it from a media perspective. But I think the fans have noticed it as well, just from the way he talks about things. But like for example, this whole week we have in media full access to the full training, which is not something we've ever had in the past with Gary Smith. That I would be surprised if that didn't come from BJ. I know the team has marketing people and people in PR and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, credit to them and credit to BJ for allowing people in, because I do think that is very important when you're trying to stake a claim here in this market, to allow people to see what you're working on, especially if you finish 13th the year before, because you're gonna have to get people behind you and get people to believe. And the best way to do that is to show that you're working really hard every day, not just tell them that you're working really hard every day.
And speaking of BJ and getting behind something, Valer was also the recipient of some very high praise from BJ about starting a new soccer venture in 615 Soccer. I bet that was kind of cool to be on the receiving end of just the coach recognizing this thing that you started to build. Kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to everybody, by the way. That entire last week was incredible. And I know Clay, Steven, and I are so thankful, and Omari too. We're so thankful for everything you guys did and joining up 615. I mean, that the reception we got has been honestly just out of this world, and we couldn't have imagined it any better. We're so excited to improve this show and improve 615 Soccer even further and bring you all sorts of stuff. And yeah, BJ was a nice shout out. Nashville SC team, in terms of their communication folks, they've been helpful as well. So all of that has been really cool to see. People recognize the work we've all put in for the last 6 years.
And not only that, I think it's also worth shouting out the people listening and the people that were on the Patreon, because whether they realize it or not, they're one of the proofs of concept that we can take this forward as a reader and listener supported, like, venture. Like the Patreon helped us, put money forward to do this thing on the front end, which has helped us create, a media company in Nashville. And so that doesn't happen without the people who have listened to this show every week, without the people who've donated money to this show every month. Like that is literally your money at work. Like we always joke that we're not going to let Steven use the money to go on a trip, but we were always going to keep it in the show, and that's what we did. We kept the money back, and that's allowed us to help out and to be an equal partner going into starting a new media company in Nashville covering soccer. And along those lines, to give you people exactly what you want, Steve and I have bad news about Hans Zimmer. in his set list, thanks to setlist.fm.
No, why
I
would you
could
do
find
this?
out that
Why
there was
would you
no
do this?
MLS theme.
Why?
Maybe it's
No
called something
MLS
else.
theme.
Maybe it's called something else. How would you know? Maybe it's not called the MLS theme, but he
It's
created
very
it.
clear on what it is. So he's been on a European tour. He hadn't played it on any of the European sites, and it doesn't look like he played it in his American sites. But maybe it'll change.
It's a
What if
new
I go to
day.
the
The
show?
season's
I
about to start.
do you think I can go to the show and heckle him to play it?
heckle,
I'm just saying,
heckle the
the
entire
European set list
orchestra.
and the Las Vegas and Los Angeles set list looked eerily similar.
Play Free Bird. Play the MLS theme. One last thing I do want to say, just one important note. If you are our Patreon member and haven't signed up for 615 Soccer, please do so immediately. We sent you a link where you get a little bit of a discount, so use that, and we would love to see you on the other side. Like Clay said, you are one of the big reasons why we have this in general. So please, please, please sign up for 615soccer.com. And even if you're not a Patreon member, go ahead and sign up for 615soccer.com if you haven't, because that is how we're going to keep this show going and keep this organization going and keep giving you all the Nashville stuff.
Also, just so you know, it's literally called MLS Anthem. Really good
I
with the name callings and stuff here.
Trust me, I did some research whenever you were curious, and I was upset to learn that it's not on the set list.
You know what? It's a new day. It's in that. Hey, maybe it's in Nashville, so he wants to play.
They didn't play it in Seattle. I would feel like if they're going to play it anywhere,
We are a
bigger
Seattle. Soccer city in MLS city than Seattle, so don't
right,
even want to hear
that one out for social media.
All right, we do have just a little bit of news to talk about when it comes to the team, and we do want to give Valera a little bit of time as he was at preseason today and training with the team, so we want to give him a little bit of time to talk about that, and we'll do that next right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, make sure you do check out 615soccer.com. Spell that out and you'll get there. All the information possible. Would love to have you be a part of 615 Soccer. There is some free content as well as some paid fun articles there. So make sure you do check that out. Yeah, would love to have you a part of it. Also, pharmasoccer.com if you're looking for any more information on where to find us. That was my first intro for 615 Soccer, just in a normal context. I think I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty happy.
All right. Not bad.
Cool. Thanks, Flair. Now, look, we had a limited news week the last week with some moves being happening. But figured we'll just kind of go over them really quick. I think the first one is Nashville SC bringing in a new keeper, and that would be Brian Schweik, who played Spanish League 2, correct? Before coming to Nashville?
He did, yes. And before that, he was in Scotland, I believe, second division in Scotland.
Cool.
Do you want me to talk about him? Okay.
Normally this would be the time where you do talk about the player. I mean, if there's something to talk about, there's nothing to talk about. But
there's something to talk about. Let's talk about him, because I think a younger American player, not taking an international spot, salary probably wouldn't be anywhere that would kind of prohibit Nashville from getting another player. But I think there is a movement in that position. Other than Joe Willis, every other goalkeeper within Nashville or Huntsville organization was let go or option declined in this offseason. So I think there's a clear movement there to be younger and to kind of offer maybe a little bit of an opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a little bit more challenging, maybe Joe Willis, or maybe that's the hope eventually to get him to challenge Joe Willis for a starting spot. He's clearly not there yet, but this is not a goalkeeper that they're just bringing in to kind of put on the bench. I think they're going to want to kind of get him involved and maybe he's challenging Valdez. Maybe he's more so challenging Valdez for that number 2 spot. I don't know if that's been decided yet, but there is going to be some minutes, because we know Nashville SC is not going to just play in MLS. There are going to be some sort of cup games. We don't know yet what those look like, but there are going to be some minutes out there. And also within MLS, BJ Callahan might be inclined to give a run for somebody who is younger, who maybe have proved themselves throughout training. So yeah, pretty exciting. I think for Nashville SC, goalkeeper wise, I think they're set now. They signed three total, one for Huntsville, two for the first team. But even the two who signed for the first team, Howard Valdez and Schweik, they might make some appearances in Huntsville as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that update, Valer. Appreciate that. Then we did get some information today as well, which I do think is actually very interesting because it does kind of lead to a little bit more, questions when it comes to the forwards that Nashville SC does have. As Ruben Spacey is getting loaned to Tampa Bay. That happened this morning as we were recording. Don't necessarily think I think it's a good thing in all honesty. It's a player that they do have faith in, that they do want to make sure is getting minutes in a different place, where he's going to a squad. He's not just going to any normal USL squad. He's going to a squad that is known for developing players and being extremely successful in USL, where he is going to get that time. It is interesting, though, because what forwards do we have besides Sam Surridge and Teal Brumbury?
Adam Sipich. But go ahead, Clay.
Well, I was just saying it's a sort of a natural move. They don't rate him as MLS ready, which is fine. But he shouldn't be playing MLS Next Pro if he's not MLS ready because he's already proven that he can play at a high level at MLS Next Pro, and he's probably too old for what they want down there too. Like if in an ideal world you're bringing someone straight up from MLS Next Pro to play at the MLS level, but there's not really a spot for him, and they don't think it can work with him yet. So you send him to a competitive championship team, give it a chance to get real minutes playing in what has traditionally been a pretty good team in Tampa, and a team that, let's be honest, Nashville has had plenty of links with in the last couple of years playing with. So there might be an opportunity to recall him from a loan, maybe for cup games, and then send him back down, for that, which is what they did with Lawrence Wyke, I believe. I believe they brought him in and then sent him back.
Who now is fully signed to Tampa, by the way. But yeah,
yeah. But I was just meaning,
but they did do that with him. You're right.
Yeah. So like, there's clearly a professional relationship that exists there. So, I think that it's a move that makes sense. I mean, it's a bit of a bummer in that like we were kind of all hoping to see him after he had like some things to get excited about playing with Huntsville. But given that, we were excited about Ajago and then he was gone just as quickly as he got back up, maybe this is a more appropriate way of bringing him on.
And a couple of things, Clay, you're 100% right. I mean, the USL Championship is a higher level than MLS Next Pro, and I think that's very clear. I mean, even in the divisional sort of divide, they are Division Two, where MLS Next Pro is Division Three. But just overall, if you watch a game from here and here, you can tell there are men making a living in USL Championship, and MLS Next Pro is largely academy kids and maybe younger people. The other thing I want to say is that the biggest impact this has on the roster for Nashville SC is that it does open up an international slot. That international slot could be traded, obviously, but it also could serve for a newcomer. So obviously, we don't know what they're going to do with it yet, but that's now at their disposal. To where just earlier this morning it wasn't at their disposal. And on Ajago, he did fully sign with RSL, so you might see him out there. And I have a suspicious feeling that he's gonna be really good for RSL because they have three like world-class creators behind him, and they just traded Chicho Arango and haven't filled up that spot yet. So he might just find himself starting for RSL all of a sudden, unless of course they go and grab somebody before the summer. We don't know what's gonna happen, but I don't know how we got to talking about this, but all I'm saying is that for Jago, keep an eye out because he might have a larger opportunity at RSL, at least this first part of the season, than he ever had with Nashville SC.
Would that bother you? Would that frustrate you a little bit? Because this is a player, it forces say like he is extremely successful at RSL. He was a player that Nashville is very highly keen on, that randomly just decided to not be a part of this academy or team going forward anymore.
I guess I just don't understand the move from Nashville's perspective, and maybe time will tell. Maybe he'll go out there and not be able to compete in MLS. we don't know. The sample size is still very small on him. So I don't want to make any claims, but for me, I see a team who definitely need another player in that number 9 spot. And I thought from his cameos, he did enough to earn himself a spot on this roster. Again, they see him in training every day. We don't. So I don't want to make any claims. He's definitely not a young player. He's younger, but he's not like a young player. So I want to see what he does with RSL. But to me, I don't understand the move from Nashville SC specifically, but they might have information that we don't. So I don't want to judge it harshly quite yet.
And one of the things, again, it's been a slow week, not a ton of information, but one thing that we talked about in the first segment is Voller actually got to go to a training session today, which was a lot of fun for him to be able to be a part of. I'm sure it was nice just to be even around media in a perspective from the Nashville SC side, to see some media in one area together. Voller, do you kind of want to just give just kind of a rundown of what that was like to be a part of that training session, and to see the team back in Nashville?
Despite what Steven said, I did not take part in the training session. I took part in covering the training session. So let's make very clear. I would last all of maybe minute and a half, and it was very intense. I mean, from moment one, they were going at it. There was like tackles and stuff flying in. No, I think I'd mentioned this last time. When we got to see a BJ Callahan team train, the intensity was different. There was a different vibe around the training facility, and there was a lot more sort of, trying to assert yourself and trying to prove who you are. One thing about preseason that's completely different than any other training is that there are, a good amount of players, more than a handful, trying to prove that they earn a spot within this roster. And that's something that you don't see in your midseason regular sort of training session. So there are players out there without a contract still. They are with Nashville on a trialist base, and they're trying to prove themselves. And that pushes everyone higher because the intensity is now higher. I saw a couple of things that were interesting. It seems like that formation thing I was talking about was implemented fully within this training session. Everything else was pretty much just what you would expect from a training session. But BJ Callahan is not one of those managers that just lets like the assistants kind of run it. He's involved. He's hands-on. He's given instructions, talking to players, within each play, within each sort of segment of play. So like, those were kind of the interesting things. And then we got the opportunity to talk to BJ afterwards, and we got the opportunity to talk to Taxeth and Walker and Jacob Schaffelberg afterwards. And then throughout the week, we'll have the opportunity to talk to more people. Go to 615soccer.com for all the coverage. But I'll kind of give you a little bit of a summary. I think they're viewing this. It seemed like the message was very clear from the players that they're viewing this as a blank slate, as something that's completely new and different from what they've done in the past. And both Walker and Schaffelberg kind of admitted that this is the biggest turnover they've seen, especially for Walker. He said the staff is different, the players are different, but while that's kind of brings uncertainty, it's also exciting. And I think for someone like Walker, he's now the leader, he's the captain of this club, and I think he takes a huge responsibility in making sure sort of everyone's acclimated and everyone knows what they're here for. And I thought he spoke really well when we asked him multiple questions about sort of coming back into this season and doing that part. All in all, I think there's a I don't want to say a happy or there's a confident feel within the training ground. I think that this team is capable of more than what they did last year. Now, is that going to translate on the field day one? I don't know. Is that going to translate on the field, game 17? I don't know. But I can, from the vibes of it, it seemed like positive vibes. Everybody's kind of pushing each other, and it's not positive vibes as in like, oh, like it's all laughs and easy. No, it was intense. It was hard, but I think everybody there was fully committed to that. A couple training updates just while I'm kind of listing things. Teal Bunbury was training separately from the team. I don't know if he has a niggle of some sort or some sort of issue that he's working on physically. He also didn't participate in the preseason games. so I wouldn't be surprised if there's something more info to come out of there. And then Julian Gaines and Brugman both were only in the weight room and they didn't kind of join the full team. So, it could mean anything. It could be that there's a small issue here or there, but just something to keep an eye on as we move. And as we know more information, we'll make sure to kind of report it. I don't want to suspect anything. It could not be injuries. It could be like specific training. I don't know. I don't have the answers there, but that's kind of just what we noticed from being there. And then the last bit of information is that Benji Michel, former Orlando and RSL player, is with the team currently on a trialist basis. I have no information on whether or not he'll be signed, but he was there today in full training with the team.
I will say, whenever Nashville did play Orlando, Benji Michel was the one player that I loved to actually hate. You could just tell he was a lot. I don't know. There was something about Benji Michel compared to everybody else on that Orlando team where I'm like, you know what? I don't hate you in comparison to everybody else that was on that team. I don't know why specifically, but I liked Benji Michel. I thought
I
he
had
was a
my
good player.
choice. I would take Daryl DK. Just saying.
Good. Also fair.
Did Benji Michel score against Nashville? Am I imagining
I
this?
believe
I
he
think he
did.
scored, right?
I believe he did. Yes.
Yeah. Gotta find the clip.
Is there any other MLS moves that you want to talk about that have happened kind of in between? I want to talk about the preseason match at Geodis here after that, but any MLS moves or anything else that we kind of want to go over?
I mean, the big one for me, although I guess it's not official yet, but Miguel Almiron going back to Atlanta is a great story. Um, and I know we talked about it last week, but it looks like it's going to be happening here soon. But I'm really excited about that. Again, I used to live in Atlanta, and the hold that Miguel Almiron and Joseph Martinez had on that city at one point was really, really cool to see as someone who's around for MLS 1.0, that has seen um, MLS teams be, kind of the B story in town, which is what we experience in Nashville right now, unfortunately. And seeing how involved Almiron was in helping make Atlanta just like this massively important Atlanta United, a massively important sports story in Atlanta for a couple years is really cool. So it's really cool to see him come back, even though I as a Nashville fan, somewhat dread.
Yeah, as a Nashville fan, I dread it. I hate it as
Yeah,
a Nashville fan. But I remember being there for when Atlanta United played Newcastle for the friendly in at Mercedes-Benz, and it was super cool when Miguel Moron came on. Just the way that the city received him. Yeah, he is a legend in that city, and it is cool to see him come back.
yeah, that was the big one for me.
Um, is it just going to be Shaq Moore, and is he the only Dallas player that now exists? But Austin, on the other hand, has two record signings, and Dallas has sold every single player that they have on their team. So that's, I don't know if we're going to talk about Texas soccer. All right. Well, this has been fun. Thank you guys so much for contributing. Appreciate that. Look, I
It's a
know why
national
you guys
show.
wanted
Let's
to.
be
No,
honest.
no, I know why
I
you
was,
guys
I
wanted
was,
to.
I honestly was just trying to let you talk and just see how long you can hold a conversation by yourself about MLS signing. I was just testing you. I was just looking to see how long you'll make it, and I think you clocked out at about 25 seconds. Just so we're clear.
Just yeah, because normally what I do on this show is I guide the conversation to you two.
Well, I
Lord
was
knows we're
allowing you
not
to
leaving
have
the smart conversations up to me. That's
I
what
was
it is.
allowing you to have more of a spotlight. I'll let you do the rundown. I'll let you do a little bit more analysis on the, but clearly you don't want that. So
Did
we'll
you
just
just
move
hear
on.
the preposition? I let you do that. Absolutely, that was he let me do that. So thank you very much, Fuller. I appreciate that. I appreciate you letting me do the things. I know why you were quiet though. You wanted to move on from this conversation. You wanted to move on to talk about a team that we've talked about way too much on this show already. And that would be Lexington Soccer Club, who we are
Yeah.
going to see at Geodis Park on Saturday. I'm excited for this. This is another one of those preseason things that hasn't happened a ton. And nice little bonus for season ticket holders to have the ability to go see their team in preseason. You saw Atlanta and Chattanooga over this weekend, still one of the coolest friendlies that exists, I think, in the MLS sphere. I don't think this lives up to it, but I do think it is really, really cool to see Nashville SC start to kind of have those a little, like you said, those preseason abilities to see the team.
Yeah, it's really nice to see any USL team play an MLS team, but I think the proximity, the close proximity is always nice too. For Lexington, they just got promoted is a strong word. They were put into the USL Championship after playing in USL League One, and seeing that progress of a professional soccer team in a small market, pretty small market, Lexington, it's pretty cool. And I think any opportunity I get to cover a game where there's a USL team, or watch a game where there's a USL team versus an MLS team, I'm interested in it immediately, because we in this country we don't see that often. We're starting to see it even less and less now. So, and you add to the fact that it's free for season ticket members, and you can bring your friends for free as well. I think it'll be a good Saturday at the park. The only issue, I think someone told me that it might be raining, so hopefully not, because that would kind of dampen the festivities, I guess.
Well, wow, Valer, you didn't even mean to pun that one there, but to dampen the festivities, like
I did not mean to do that.
that's some Clay level pun usage right there. So appreciate that. Well, look, let's just give our plugs. I'll be in town. I'm excited to see the both of you. I will see. Are you guys both going on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll be there at least for a little bit. There's going to be a Royal Rumble watch party at my house, so I am actually doing a lot of barbecue setup to do to do during the game. So I'll have to leave at some point.
Awesome. Well, let's just do our plugs and then let's give a prediction for it. Valeri, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a resounding Nashville win. Probably let's go 4-1. And we're gonna see goals from Sam Surridge and Hani Mukhtar and Adam Sipic and I don't know, Jacob Schaffelberg. Why not? I'm just naming from the top to the bottom team. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. And also go to 615soccer.com. You'll see all my work there. You'll see the pod there, and you'll see everybody else's work there. We're trying to build something really special there, and we would love to have you guys be part of it.
And you can follow me at Clay Lessol on Instagram and Twitter. And you can check out Nashville Soccer Archive at nashvillesoccerarchive.com. And if you have anything you'd like to donate or any stories you'd like to tell about Nashville soccer, please reach out to me. I want to know them, and I want to make sure that you know what's going on with the Nashville Soccer Archive.
Are you going to give a prediction for the preseason match?
I don't know.
Perfect.
Let's go with 6-2 Lexington. No, just 6-2. 6-2 for Nashville SC.
Could you imagine though if that would happen
I'd
during
live for Twitter if that happens.
Oh my God, the season would be over. Again, go to 615 Soccer, go to Nashville Soccer Archive, follow those peeps. Those are the cool peeps to follow. I'm gonna go with a 5. No, well, I was gonna go with another 3-0 win, but I can't say Woburn. Well, I guess I could because it's me. 3-0 win for Nashville with Hani Mukhtar getting a goal, Woobens Pacius getting a goal, and Adam Sipic getting a goal. So I know that's not actually possible, but I did it anyways. Mwahaha.
Azadli Adi will score one of the goals for Lexington.
Oh God, he might. He might actually do it. Thank you guys so much again for listening to the show. We really do appreciate it. Of course, we'll be back next week as we will be then counting down the days in February to get to the regular season. We're really excited for it. Prop bet episode is probably coming up in a few weeks as well. So we got a lot of stuff to cover and go over. So make sure you're following along. Go to 615soccer.com and make that happen. Yeah, y'all are great, fantastic, and we will talk to you next week.